Welcome to Let's Make Cake. I'm your host, Michelle Pyle, and we are here to overcome depression and anxiety and make a new life because that's what I did. And so I want to share what I did and what others have done with you guys. So today I want to talk about a couple of things. One is a tool that I used and that I would encourage you to try, which is called mantras, which is just going to help you. It's a tool to help you change the way you think. And the second is a psychological concept called core beliefs. And this is very, very important to overcoming your depression and anxiety. And yeah, so we're going to talk about those two things. We are going to talk about this through another person's story, actually. So I read this article, I don't know, maybe a month ago. And it's such a good story, and I wanted to share it with you guys and then use that to talk about these two concepts. So let me jump over to here. Okay, so the two articles were the first was in Forbes magazine and the second was in People magazine, and I'll jump back and forth between them, but it's about this guy named Blake Mycoskie. And he founded a shoe company called Tom's. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's been around for a long time. And the idea behind his shoe company was if you buy a pair of shoes, the company would donate a pair of shoes to kids in need. So Tom's, the idea, 1 for 1 was the idea. These are kind of what the shoes look like. I actually had a purple pair like 20 years ago. So this company's been around for a long time. Anyway, so these articles talk about how the founder kind of went through a mental health situation and now has started a new company. So I'm just going to walk through both of these articles, taking different pieces from them. So in 2019, Mycoskie sold his company and he wasn't prepared for the transition. So you probably know, like, life transitions can be very jarring, especially when it involves our work. So whether you're laid off or you choose to retire or you choose to change careers, it's very disruptive to life. So in this interview in Forbes, he says, no one prepared me for what life would be like after selling Tom's. 3 things happened. I love how he lays this out. The first thing is I lost my sense of purpose. Every day I woke up excited to work because I had this purpose of helping kids get shoes that desperately needed them. The second thing was I lost my community. I had 350 employees scattered all over the world that had become like best friends from building this company from the ground up. They really were my family. So those 2 things are huge, and that is one of the problems with job loss or retirement or trying to change your career is that you lose your sense of purpose and you lose that kind of built-in community that you have. So he hits on 2 very important things. And then we've got here, when I sold the company, I had a dream of moving to the mountains because I love snowboarding. I moved to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. So I wasn't in the city as all my friends. I didn't have my purpose. And in Wyoming in the wintertime, for half the year, it gets dark at 5 p.m. That's not good for one's mental health if you're used to living in California in the sunshine. So he hits on a couple things here, actually. So, right, moving is actually a big deal. I'm not sure we all fully appreciate how difficult it is to pick up and move your life to a new place. So he hits on a few things that really kind of startled his sort of equilibrium. So now we're going to jump back into People magazine as well. So these are 2 interviews I'm just piecing together. But he started experiencing depression. So he was left with an unfamiliar emptiness. I started feeling depression for the first time in my life, he says, adding that he did a lot of things to try to fix it, like building his dream house, trying out new hobbies, but nothing was working. And, I think we all can relate to this, where we sort of start grasping it. What are different things I can do to, like, get out of this? Then jump over here to the Forbes article. My self-talk was constantly negative and mean. And that is a huge red flag for depression. Your brain will turn on you. Mental illness, it's so real and it's so invisible, which is true. People cannot see it most of the time. Because to everyone else, my life looked great. I lived in this mansion in a fancy neighborhood. My kids were doing well, et cetera, et cetera. And I think this is so important. We don't know what's going on in someone's life, right? So from the outside, it can look totally perfect. And on the inside, they're really struggling with depression. Inside, Mycoskie says, I just felt so alone. I remember dropping the kids off at school and then going to a park and crying and not answering anyone's calls. That is huge, right? With depression, you start to isolate. You're not doing well. The scariest part is it's in your head. And that is the scariest part about depression. Yeah, he refers to these never-ending horrible thoughts, and that is, yeah, that's depression. Okay, so let's keep going. So he did the best thing. He told people and he sought help. So over in the People interview, Mycoskie shares that the best thing he did was tell people, hey, I'm struggling. I can't control my thoughts. I'm having really bad ones. I'm not sleeping. Just the courage it takes to tell someone I'm not okay. Well, first you have to have someone in your life you trust to tell. And some of us don't have that, or we're in situations where we feel like we don't have that. But it is so important to reach out to someone and say, I'm not doing okay. Then the second part of that is you do need to go get help. So with support, I got help. He worked with a psychiatrist and a psychologist and did a lot of therapy where we looked at every little step of my life. Therapists, that is just a great place to start. Always. Okay, so in therapy, he evaluated his life. So here we go. In the Forbes article, I went to a facility, got an amazing therapist. There I really worked with what is called a core wound. And I realized that my core wound my whole life was that I never felt that I was enough. In cognitive behavioral therapy, they refer to these as core beliefs. I think it's sort of interesting that he calls it a core wound, and I think that's a great way to look at it through a different sort of perspective. But yeah, we'll talk more about this. But yeah, this is a core belief, right? I am enough. So going on, no matter how many tennis matches I won as a college player, no matter how much money I made in business, no matter how many people I helped with Tom's shoes, I never felt that I was enough. That was affecting every aspect of my life. And that's why they're called like core. It's core because it does impact everything. When I tried to feel enough by doing all these external things with the money, it made it worse because nothing worked. And when nothing is working, that's when you really panic. That's why I got to such a dark place. His introspection on what happened to him this is huge. Like, he should be giving TED Talks about this because he's hitting on all the things that can trigger depression and cause your life to spin out. Yeah, and you do panic when nothing is working, right? It's terrifying. I just think this guy is so great, and him sharing his story is so, so important. Let's jump over here to People. With Tom's, Mycoskie said he thought, if I start a business that helps the world and I give 100 million children shoes, then I'll be enough. I did that and I still didn't feel enough. I sold the company and I had all this money and the family and the house and all this stuff and still didn't feel enough. This is really important. That feeling of I am enough, and he's going to talk about this more, like, you have to build that just within yourself. The external things don't necessarily make you feel enough. You can keep seeking and seeking and seeking and not get there. Let's continue. So that feeling of not feeling enough, he says, has been at the root of all my depressive symptoms and all the things that I've been experiencing for the past 7 years. So powerful. Okay, So now let's move into how he got better. So he was advised to meditate for 40 days, telling himself, I am enough. A practice he hated. He says it felt like the dumbest thing I've ever done. He wasn't feeling better and he felt silly. That's the thing with these psychological tools, right? So meditation and mantras are very similar. I don't meditate, but I use mantras. And that's just where you repeat a phrase such as I am enough in order to change the way you believe about yourself, things you believe about yourself. And it does feel silly and it does feel stupid. So he's very honest and this is very true. That's how it feels. So I love that. Jumping over to the Forbes, the goal was to reprogram my subconscious and my neural pathways around this limiting belief. I love that because even with the therapy, you can go back and understand, what caused me to have this belief that I'm not enough. But in order to change it, yes, you do therapy and you deal with your childhood, but you also can change the way you think and feel by doing meditation or what I prefer, mantras. And that is a really powerful thing about the brain. And we'll talk about that more too. But he says, I did it and I started to feel better. I started to feel peace that I've never felt in my life. Jumping over here, I felt lighter in my body. A few weeks later, he was in India to meet with another man who struggled with severe depression, and he had this very clear, calm vision. I'm not the only person that suffers from this. This is actually a cultural sickness. Our whole culture is designed to make us not feel enough, whether it's social media or capitalism, or if you buy this, you'll be enough. If you have this relationship, you'll be enough. So now we're starting to see what he wants to do next now that he's gotten better. So he, realizes I'm not the only one, and he comes up with this concept for bracelets. So back to the Forbes article, I thought I want to go back and figure out a way to help people know that they are enough and that this moment is enough. Feeling enough doesn't mean that you're complacent or mediocre. It's actually a feeling of peace that allows you to perform well. And then the Forbes interviewer, Knox, says, how did that realization lead to enough? That's his new company that he's starting. So Mycoskie says, I came back to the States and thought about everything I did with Tom's and how we really made a huge difference in the world with that. And I came up with this idea for this bracelet. I'm wearing one here. This is a hand-beaded bracelet made in India. And this is the great part. I wear it every day as a reminder that I'm enough. But more importantly, I give them away to people to share that message with others. So he really hits it on the head, right? Like even after all that work, this is something that he's going to have to do kind of for the rest of his life, right? Those core beliefs don't change overnight. And even when we improve them, we still need to use these tools, like even once we're past the depression, right? So he wants this daily reminder that I'm enough. And then the cool part is he wants to share that with others, which is so awesome. Here's a close-up of the bracelet. And of course, like his shoe company, you get one and you can give one away. I wanted to have something I could wear every day that I could touch and hold on to and say, I'm enough, I've always been enough, whenever I find myself with anxiety or struggling. And that's really important. I just love this, that he realizes you don't do it and then you're done. This is like ongoing stuff. At the end here, Mycoskie hopes they can inspire a feeling of community, which is so important, that we're not alone in this. I see you're wearing the bracelet and I'm wearing the bracelet, then we'll feel more connected. And I think that's what we need in the world. It's to feel more connected, that we're all in this together. And that is just so, so true. So just, wow. Like both of these interviews, and I'll provide links, there's a lot more in there. He just does such an amazing job of walking through what happened to him, how he thinks he ended up in a state of depression, how he overcame it, and what he's ongoing work that he's doing. And this is what we all, this process, this is what we have to do to overcome depression and anxiety. and make a new life. We have to figure out, how did I end up here? How do I get out of it? And then what are the ongoing things that I need to do? He specifically, and I focused on mantras and core beliefs. So for him, he didn't use quote unquote mantras, he used meditation, but there's a lot of similarities. And I just don't meditate, but I use mantras, and I know other people do. And it's a similar concept where it's just the repetition. With the repetition, you are trying to change the way you think. Some people refer to that as this on the subconscious level or neural pathways in your brain. But one way to think of it is you have this worn path that your brain always goes down, which is I'm not enough. And we'll talk about other core beliefs, but that's a big one. I'm not enough. Whatever I do, it's not enough. I'm not good enough, or whatever. I'm not pretty enough, like whatever the enough is. And your brain, your thoughts and your feelings, because it's such a well-worn path in your mind, it just goes there automatically. You're not even thinking about it. It's so automatic. And so to sort of create a new path, right, that becomes just as worn and just as easy to go down for your mind, you can use a mantra. And so it's a phrase you repeat. So when I first worked with a cognitive behavioral therapist many years ago, she advised me when we were first starting this work that 3 times a day I needed to say, I am enough. I actually had 3 core beliefs that I was working on. So I am enough, I matter, and I belong, because those were the 3 that I didn't feel. So those were the 3 we needed to work on. And so 3 times a day, I had to say it 3 times. So it kind of helps to just use similar numbers. But yeah, and I did that, I don't remember, maybe 6 weeks. At first, I couldn't even say it out loud. I could only say it in my head. That's how far away from feeling I matter, I am enough, I belong. That's how far away I was. But over time, not by doing any other like childhood work, just by doing this, a mantra of the core belief that I was trying to change, I was able to start to believe it. And I think that is the like most bizarre, and it doesn't totally make sense, but our brains can change through repetition, and meditation is it's a repetition. So if you identify with any of these core beliefs, and there's more out there, and I can give you some good resources. So there's positivepsychology.com, and I'll provide a link. They have a whole section on core beliefs that you can download worksheets and articles. But working with a therapist, you can look for specifically a cognitive behavioral therapist. They love talking about this stuff. So you can just find one who does that type of therapy and literally just say, I want to work on core beliefs. And they'll be like, great, let's go. Like, they really love this stuff because it is so important to uncover what core beliefs you are walking around with that are affecting how you interact with the world, how you interact in relationships, how you interpret experiences, how you interpret how people are talking to you or what they're saying. That filter, if you have a core belief of I'm not enough for myself, I don't matter, and I don't belong, that is how I interpreted my entire world. And it's not great. You have to fix that because if you can change that, then you can really start to make progress on your depression and your anxiety. It's really so important. So positivepsychology.com is a great resource. Reaching out to a cognitive behavioral therapist. You can Google core beliefs. There is so much information out there about them. And you can watch other videos, read these articles about this guy that I was just talking about. But yeah, you want to work on this, because it is, if you're walking around with negative core beliefs, it's contributing to your depression and anxiety 100%. And your life is just not going to be as fulfilling until you really address these. So yeah, so I just really appreciate, I have a hard time saying his name, Blake Mycoskie, for sharing his story, for opening up, for being willing to be vulnerable and say, I went through this really terrible depression. And it was hard to overcome, but I did it. His story is awesome. It's so powerful. I did the work myself. I'd actually never even heard of this concept of core beliefs, despite having gone to various therapists since the third grade. It wasn't until, I don't know, maybe 8 years ago that I just happened to connect. I wasn't searching out a cognitive behavioral therapist. I just happened to connect with one. And I was, in our first session, I was just sobbing and saying all these, things about how terrible life is and how terrible I am. And she was great. She was like, well, have you ever heard of this concept called core beliefs? And I was like, no, I don't love, what do you mean? I'm always like, kind of like, about psychological speak. But I persevered through my judgment. And yeah, she really helped me just recognize that you're walking around with these belief systems about yourself, and not just about yourself, also about the world and about other people. And so you want to look at all of those. Today, I'm just talking about the beliefs we have about ourselves, and how if you're not even aware that you have them, right? I didn't know that I felt this way until she helped me see that. And it was really cool. What she did was she just had a list, and she said, I'm going to read you this list. I'm going to read one, and I want you to say it back to me. And I want to say there were like 20. And so she would start, and I'll just use the 3 that I remember. So she said, I am enough. And then asked me to say, I was supposed to say it to her. And I was crying so bad. I could hardly even say the words. And that is the indicator, like, something is wrong here. Like, I don't feel this. And to the point where I can't even say it. And so that was a really profound moment for me. I don't know if that will work for you. If you find, you'll find a bunch online. But if you try saying them and you're like, I can't, like, I'm uncomfortable saying this, that's an indicator, like, I need to work on this. But there's other ways. So like when you go online, that you'll find examples of kind of the negative ones, like, I'm just a bad person, or, whatever. If you identify with those are going to be indicators that that's what you need to work on. But again, like, for the most part, I just used mantras to overcome those negative beliefs I had about myself. I had my 3 that I was working on. I said them 3 times a day. First, just in my head. Then finally, I was able to say them out loud. Today, I'm happy to report that I can say it in front of the mirror. And the other thing I really like about this guy starting the bracelet company with the Enough is his recognition that it doesn't, like, fix itself forever, right? Like, I still have to remind myself, like, you belong, I belong, I matter. So it's something that, it's a tool you're going to use ongoing in life, even once you're past depression and anxiety. And I think that's really important too. It's just, these are skills we need to keep in our toolkit, so to speak. So that is today's video. I'll provide links, and I would just really encourage you to explore core beliefs and mantras and start to help yourself feel better. So, okay, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thank you.